You're watching UATV News. My name is Ina Kosinska. Good evening. The United States and allies will continue to work to strengthen Ukraine's energy security. This was reported in the United States Department of State following a meeting between President of Ukraine Volodymyr Zelenskyy and U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken. The talks took place during a climate conference in Glasgow. The officials discussed the situation in Donbas, implementation of reforms in Ukraine, and threats of the Nord Stream 2 gas pipeline.
Discussed the tense security situation in Donbas with Secretary Blinken, talked about Ukraine-US military defense cooperation challenges in the energy sector. The United States firmly supports Ukraine's territorial integrity, praises progress in reforms and a strong commitment to their implementation. Volodymyr Zelenskyy's message on Twitter. Secretary Blinken reaffirmed the United States' unwavering support for Ukraine's sovereignty, independence and territorial integrity. He welcomed Ukraine's steps to address corruption and underscored that, together with our allies and partners, the United States would continue to reinforce Ukrainian energy security, including by reducing the risks posed by the Nord Stream 2 pipeline. From the message on the website of the U.S. Department of State.
13 bilateral meetings were held by Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelenskyy on the sidelines of the UN climate conference. Strengthening the strategic partnership and security of Ukraine was discussed. Minister of Foreign Affairs of Ukraine, Kuleba, told this. According to him, the program was very rich and negotiations were productive. Some of the meetings became the first in the history of bilateral relations between Ukraine and other states.
There was, for instance, a short meeting with the President of Angola and of Liberia. We spoke with Asia, Latin America and Africa. Meetings with our traditional regular partners are of great importance as well. I talk about NATO Secretary General, Acting Chancellor of Germany, United States President Joseph Biden. The President spoke to all of them about the situation in Donbas. It still remains tense enough, and we all find the actions of the Russian Federation destructive.
About 90,000 servicemen are held by Russia at the border with Ukraine and in uncontrolled territories. However, no new pulling in of troops is reported, the Minister of Defense of Ukraine stressed. They noted that Moscow accumulates military units in order to maintain tension in the region and exert political pressure on neighboring states.
It includes the troops of the 8th and 20th Armies of the Southern and Western military districts, as well as the forces and means of the Black Sea Fleet of the Russian Federation. In addition, separate formations and units of the 4th and 6th Armies of the Airborne Forces and Air Defense of the Air and Space Forces of the Armed Forces of the Russian Federation are based near our border. 2 Army Corps of the Russian occupation forces are deployed and operate in the temporarily occupied territories of Donetsk and Luhansk regions.
The alleged pulling of the Russian troops to Ukrainian borders is a fake developed by Kremlin. The National Security and Defense Council and the Ukrainian Ministry of Defense called this an attempt of intimidation. My colleagues figured out why it is not beneficial for Russia now to escalate the situation at its borders.
The spread of lies about upbuilding of the military potential by Russia on the border with Ukraine is nothing more than a psychological pressure attempt, Deputy Minister of Defense of Ukraine Anna Malyar pointed.
We have a war going on. The Russian Federation is carrying out mobilization for the purpose of psychological pressure and partly combines it with team exercises. In fact, we are witnessing such a situation now, so why is the attention being paid to it right now? This goes on constantly.
It all started with an article in the Washington Post dated October the 30th. It was about the allegedly unusual movement of equipment and military in the west of Russia after completion of the large-scale exercises Zapad 2021. The Politico then released some satellite images showing clusters of armored units, tanks and self-propelled artillery. All this is really deployed along our borders, they say in the Ukrainian delegation to the Trilateral Contact Group. But the number of military equipment has not changed recently.
I think the Western media published pictures showing only the presence of Russian troops near the Ukrainian border, but they do not give a comparison of how many Russian troops were at the same point a month ago or 2 weeks ago. According to our sources, there is no significant increase in Russian military forces near our border.
And it is not profitable for Russia now to escalate the situation on the border with Ukraine, says Serhiy Harmash. After all, this can at least slow down the commissioning of Nord Stream 2 pipeline. And yet another fake is a way for Kremlin to keep both Ukraine and Europe at bay.
What could be the reason for the fake? I think the use of Bayraktar by Ukraine in Donbass. This situation caused panic in Moscow. Kremlin has not yet decided how to respond to this new challenge, since it actually changes the balance of power in the occupied part of Donbass.
Meanwhile, Ukraine is ready for information attacks of a kind from Russia.
At the very beginning of the Russian-Ukrainian war, we practical operative officers, as well as those who became volunteers of the information front, realized that strategic communications is a tool that is the most effective in a hybrid information war.
As part of the national program, the monograph Strategic Communications in a Hybrid War, a view from a volunteer to a scientist, was published. The book tells how the information aggression of the Russian Federation against Ukraine has been developing since 2014. Who are the agents of influence, and what is the Ukrainian experience of counteracting hostile narratives? Reported by Vadim Kramer and Yulia Hronovska, UATV News.
Labor migrants, people who receive the so-called envelope salaries, entrepreneurs who worked in the shadow, all of them can now take advantage of the tax amnesty and legalize their undeclared incomes. Documents can be submitted only online to their taxpayer's account. This requires an electronic signature. The one-time voluntary declaration was launched in September and will last until September 1st of 2022.
If you decide to declare funds, then before you do this, you need to contact a bank institution, open a special account and put cash on the appropriate account and get a certificate that you add to the declaration. In addition to a desk audit for the presence of logical or arithmetic errors, the tax service does not carry out any other checks. Also, the tax service does not verify the source of origin of the declared assets and incomes.
Low rental rates and affordable loans. The Cabinet of Ministers of Ukraine is now developing several ways of assistance to entrepreneurs in regions from the red quarantine zone. This was stated by head of the government Denis Shmyhal during a working trip to the Zaporizhzhia region. The Prime Minister checked the pace of the big construction project and the condition of local hospitals. Our correspondents know details.
The cargo bridge across the Dnieper River is one of the large-scale projects of the big construction program in Zaporizhzhia, and it is the first object which visited by Prime Minister during his working trip to the region. The installation of the first cables has already started on the bridge. Each side of it relies on 48 steel ropes from 60 to a little more than 200 meters long. Its total cost from the beginning of works is more than $615 million. I hope in 2 years it will be completed.
The second stop during the trip was a visit to the regional clinical hospital. Its reconstruction has also become a part of the big construction program. The Prime Minister inspected the work of the intensive care unit as well as the reconstructed admission department. In addition, a medical, scientific, practical and educational complex for residents of the southeast of Ukraine will be created on the basis of the hospital. The Prime Minister also paid attention to vaccination issues.
It's impossible to overcome the pandemic without vaccination. Therefore, the obligation for each region is to fulfill the assigned tasks for vaccination, to create the appropriate infrastructure, the opportunity to get a jab for as many willing as possible. 95% of those who get sick are unvaccinated. COVID has turned into a pandemic of the unvaccinated.
The Zaporizhzhia nuclear power plant is another object visited by the Prime Minister. The development of nuclear energy is a strategic task for Ukraine, he said, and he emphasized that this year electricity tariffs for Ukrainians will not grow.
The price set by the government by the end of November is 7.96 hryvnias for individuals and 7.42 hryvnias for public utilities. The price is stable. It is an annual tariff, and gas is supplied continuously at these prices. We do not expect any gas or electricity outages.
This week, Denis Shmyhal will continue working trips to the regions. In the near future, he is going to visit Ternopil region in western Ukraine. Reported by Vadim Kramer and Valery Bakus, UATV News.
720 Ukrainians died from complications of coronavirus disease the day before. The Ministry of Health reported this. In total, over the past day, almost 23,500 new cases of COVID-19 were recorded. Almost 6,000 patients were hospitalized. Most of all new cases are in Kyiv, Dnipropetrovsk and Odessa regions. Nevertheless, more than 310,000 people were vaccinated the day before. In total, almost 7,600,000 people have undergone full course of vaccination in Ukraine. Almost 10,700,000 people received one dose. By the end of the year, Ukraine will receive 2,930,000 doses of the Moderna vaccine within the framework of the COVAX initiative. Since the beginning of immunization campaign, the country has received more than 26 million doses of vaccines. This was announced by Minister of Health Viktor Leshko. Now there are more than 7 million doses remaining in the regions.
As of today, every third adult in Ukraine has already been vaccinated with at least one dose. Every fourth Ukrainian adult has completed a full course of vaccination. Ukraine reached 250,000 vaccinations on average per day. In addition to increasing the rate of vaccination, it is critical for us to comply with quarantine restrictions. 16 regions are in the red zone of epidemiological danger. Volyn, Kharkiv and Ternopil regions are on the brink.
The healthcare system of Ukraine is now coping with the spread of COVID-19, and the country is not threatened with severe restrictions. The head of the Parliament Committee on National Health, Medical Assistance and Health Insurance, MP Mikhail Radutsky, announced this. According to him, if the current pace of vaccination is kept, the likelihood of the transition from the red zones to orange is big. At the same time, he stressed that there are not enough doctors in the country, and in case of big loads, they will attract 5th, 6th-year students of medical universities and interns.
Given we have vaccinated some 60 to 100,000 persons daily in summer, some 120 to 130,000 in September, now 270 to 300,000 persons get vaccinated every day. At present, there are vaccines even for those groups of population who should receive the booster dose under Health Ministry's recommendations. And you know, the ministry has also allowed to vaccinate teenagers. Therefore, there are also vaccines for them. There are no problems with vaccines now at all.
And for those who have already been vaccinated but cannot generate a COVID certificate, the government has created offline help points. There are already 2 points of a kind in the capital, one at the central railway station, the other in one of the shopping centers. Besides, one can also generate a children's COVID certificate for vaccinated teens in the DA application, and starting next week, they promise to simplify this function.
We are now developing a small upgrade, and by the end of the week, in the next update of the DA mobile application, after you choose Order a digital COVID certificate, you will have an option to order one for yourself or order one for the child.
The Ukrainian language audio guide appeared in the official residence of the President of the Czech Republic, the Prague Castle, which is included into the UNESCO World Heritage List. The audio guide is available through the mobile app. The translation of the text was carried out by the Embassy of Ukraine in the Czech Republic.
From now on, due to the initiative of the First Lady of Ukraine, Olena Zelenskyi, one can use a Ukrainian language audio guide during a tour around Prague Castle, right from one's mobile phone.
That's all for this hour. More updates on our official website, YouTube, Twitter and Facebook pages. Thank you for staying with the UATV channel. See you tomorrow. Goodbye.